Welcome to Good for Bitcoin, a weekly show recorded live every Friday, where we recap the top events of the week and talk about everything that is good for Bitcoin. If it's built on Bitcoin, then it's good for Bitcoin. Let's get started.
Content shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, or company. We encourage you to conduct your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Good for Bitcoin. My name is Brandon, social media manager here at Trust Machines, joined by my co-host, Kate. Happy Friday, Kate.
Hey, happy Friday, and hello to everyone watching. How are we doing today?
Yeah, another big week, another just action-packed week of news to talk about. Yeah, how was your week? We were still at home, or I guess you're traveling a little bit, but not in Dubai, at least.
No, I'm not in Dubai.
Many of our team members were in Dubai, and there's been a lot of news coming out of there. But yeah, how was your week?
It was a good week. We had a big election here in Canada, you probably heard about. So that was definitely the talk of the town in Canada. It's interesting because, I normally live on the West Coast, but I'm on the East Coast this week, and it's so interesting to hear coast to coast the different opinions. You know, if you're on the West Coast, a lot of people thought it was for sure going to be a conservative government. On the East Coast, they're like, no, it's for sure going to be a liberal government. And I mean, it's a liberal government with a minority, so that's what ended up happening. I think for a lot of Bitcoiners, it's a little concerning just because there's not a clear position on what the new prime minister will do when it comes to Bitcoin and crypto. I know he talks a lot about like digital infrastructure innovation, but it's very much no mention of blockchains. Yeah, it's a bit of a interesting week here in Canada, being a Bitcoiner, that's for sure. There's just a lot of uncertainty, but who knows? We'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like on the, Canada has had like ETFs, for example, right, for like years. So we talk a lot, on this show about all these different SBR bills and stuff like that. And maybe Canada isn't going to be doing like an SBR bill anytime soon, but
I don't think so.
They are, at least it seems like, especially compared to like how the Biden administration was, like a little more receptive to just digital assets, maybe in general.
Yep.
Is that like fair?
I would say, yeah. I think one of their biggest things is just regulation. That's like a big thing in Canada. It's just making sure that the proper regulations are in place. But yeah, it's hard to say at the moment what's going to happen from that. Yeah, obviously the ETFs were a big win, but nothing really more has come after that. So I'm not sure how innovation is going to unfold here. But we'll see. Yeah.
We'll see. We'll keep it. We have you on the ground, so we can track it.
I'll keep everyone updated. If there is a strategic reserve, you will know. I will post about it.
You'll be the one submitting
it. For sure. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, speaking of Dubai, going back to that, both Manib and Rina from our team were there. A lot of other Stacks and Bitcoin folks were there as well. A lot of people on my timeline were there, and I was definitely feeling a lot of FOMO this week. But Manib and Rina, just the two of them, attended Token 2049 staking summit. We had Sui Base Camp and a few more as well. So. Some pretty big, kind of higher profile events. Token 2049 especially is, I think they market it as the biggest crypto event of the year. And it's definitely seemed like there was a lot of people there.
Yeah.
So that was pretty big. Not a lot of video clips. That's where I don't know like who decides like what conferences get live streamed or not. I haven't really seen a lot of videos or live streams of anything yet, although all of these accounts have YouTube channels. I've been like monitoring them and waiting to like chop some stuff up and post them on social. We did just get stuff from Staking Summit this morning, so we'll be posting some of those clips throughout the next few days. But I'm still waiting for Manib's speech at Token 2049. I'm interested in that one, and the Sui Basecamp one where he announced some news that we're going to get into.
Yeah, that's exciting. I think he claimed himself as the certified Bitcoin bull or the Bitcoin builder. I can't remember what he said, but it was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was definitely like it's interesting seeing like somebody like Manib at like Staking Summit, which is like all about like Ethereum staking, right? It's typically you wouldn't see like a Bitcoiner at something like a staking summit, but there's so much crossover now with things that are
DeFi.
being built, right?
Yep.
You have even stuff like Babylon, right? That is kind of bringing like Bitcoin staking, to that chain. So there's definitely a lot more crossover than there used to be in the past couple of years. Another product news, we also saw some very, very high APYs on the Granite side. This week, with the LP incentives that have been going on, we saw, and still today, APYs as high as between like 35 and 40% for people that want to lend their AEUSDC to Granite and be an LP. It's pretty crazy. And you can also borrow on Granite for around 5%. So pretty great rates all around.
Maybe a fun little loophole in there. I think you were talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still doing it, right? You can deposit sBTC into Granite, take out a loan, and then the stable coins that you get from that loan, you can then just deposit it back into Granite to earn a higher earn rate. So I guess I am yield farming is what the sophisticated crypto people say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, get it while you can, right? It's just trying to incentivize newer users. So it's pretty cool.
All right. So should we get into the classic public company accumulation to kick us off?
I mean, it would not be a good for Bitcoin show without talking about strategy buying more Bitcoin. They bought another massive amount of Bitcoin, another 15,355 BTC for $1.42 billion. They now hold 553,555 Bitcoin. It seems like just a few weeks ago we were talking about how they were not yet at 500,000, and now they have a lot more.
Yep.
Pretty crazy. Also Saylor announced that they're going to be doubling their fundraising from 42 billion to 84 billion to buy more Bitcoin. So they're not slowing down with their Bitcoin acquisitions, which is just crazy. I was looking into it because it's just such a crazy number, such a crazy amount of Bitcoin. They have been purchasing Bitcoin since September 4th, 2020. From then to now, it's like roughly 250,000 Bitcoin blocks. And if you look at all that and all the Bitcoin that they've accumulated, that means on average, they're buying about 0.062 BTC with every Bitcoin block. So every 10 minutes or so, they're buying thousands of dollars worth of Bitcoin, which is just crazy.
Mining reward at this point is, what is it?
It's like 6 right? And then it's going to be going down, to 3 in a couple of years. Yeah. 6.125 or something like that. Yeah.
It's crazy to think if you're putting it in a numbers term, like you're buying basically a percentage of every Bitcoin block. It's kind of what they're doing.
Yep. Yeah, pretty wild. Semler Scientific as well. They bought another 165 BTC for 115 million. They now hold 3,467. We talked about 21 a lot last week, and I looked into it a little bit more. It looks like while they might not have necessarily purchased the Bitcoin that they had sort of announced, it seems like what's happening, I was looking a little bit more on their website, and it says in kind of fine print on their website that the total holdings currently reflect Tether and Bitfinex's committed contribution of 31,500 Bitcoin. So it seems like, we were expecting maybe there's going to be this like sell or buy pressure, right? Of like tens of thousands of Bitcoin. But it seems like these, Tether and Bitfinex kind of already probably have the Bitcoin on hand, and they're maybe just moving it over as part of this deal. So it doesn't look like it's going to be like a new injection of, this huge Bitcoin buy, at least in the beginning, and they'll start accumulating more, I guess. But
because they originally announced with their launch it would be 40,000, right? And so like with this, it's 10,000 short. I mean, I'm sure that there's room for more injection, but that's what was announced last week.
Yeah, I think, it'll be interesting to see what the final kind of number is once they kind of finish actually going public. Their stock ticker is still like CEP, so they haven't like fully transitioned over to like 21 as an entity yet, I don't think. Like they wanted to transition to like XXI to like correspond to 21 as their stock ticker. That hasn't happened yet. But I think the amount that they announced even though they're pricing a lot of this in like Bitcoin terms and not fiat terms, I think that the initial like amount was sort of based on like a fiat funding amount. So if the price of Bitcoin goes up, then the initial purchase of Bitcoin might go down, number go up. We'll see. But yeah, it just, at any rate, it doesn't seem like there's going to be immediately like 42,000 BTC suddenly being like smash bought on Coinbase or anything like that.
Yeah.
We might have to wait a little bit longer.
I've been seeing some articles and like opinion shared, but basically there's a sentiment that, as institutions and governments start buying in, retail is going to get priced out. And I mean, that's one way to look at it. The price of Bitcoin in like relation to fiat is going to get more expensive. But then I saw this post from Jack Mallers himself, and I actually really liked it. And it's just about this idea that you're never too late to Bitcoin. His tweet said, Bitcoin doesn't keep attendance. It's not a competition. It's about protecting your time, energy, and work. Every day you choose what to store your life's effort in. And I like that because it just kind of goes back to this idea. It's like anytime that you're buying Bitcoin, regardless of the price, it's almost like you're shielding it, from inflation. And again, it doesn't matter what price you're buying it at because, it's just like a protection. And so, as I start to read articles like that and there's more like sentiment across the market that institutions are going to price retail out, I think it's always important to kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, certainly like when you're doing something like dollar cost averaging, right? You're buying, you're not really concerned too much about the price. You're, at the end of the day, accumulating more BTC in BTC terms. It also makes me think of what we talked about last week, or what you talked about last week, with potentially changing sats to just Bitcoin.
Yep.
And again, it's just like that. It's that mental model, right? Of like, you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. It might seem like, these companies are buying a lot of BTC, but if you think about it in like sats, maybe it doesn't seem so bad, and you can accumulate a larger amount of sats. You still have time to accumulate a very large amount of sats, regardless of kind of your financial position.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So moving on to some state news. So a lot of actually developments this week on the U.S. state strategic Bitcoin reserve bills that are happening. So Arizona, so SB 1025 and SB 1373 passed in both the House and the Senate, which is huge. There are two bills that passed. They both kind of go hand in hand with each other. So SB 1025 is designed to enable existing public money like pensions to invest in Bitcoin, where SB 1373 will create a new state fund consisting of seized or especially allocated digital assets. So they're both doing different things, but this is the first bill that has passed in both the House and the Senate. So it now moves to Governor Katie Hobbs' desk for signing. It's not a guarantee, though, that it will be signed. Governor Katie Hobbs, she's a Democrat. She's not super crypto friendly based on kind of actions that she's done in the past. She has vetoed one crypto related bill in the past. So some are speculating that she might veto this one. So we'll have to see. It certainly got, support from both the House and the Senate. That seems like a little bit more of a bipartisan support, but it's up to the governor at this point. So we'll keep a close eye on it. We'll see.
Hopefully it does not fall the same fate as the Oklahoma bill.
Yeah. So we missed this last week. The Oklahoma bill, SBR bill, failed, unfortunately. So that leaves now Arizona, New Hampshire, and Texas with bills that have passed at least one branch of government. So those are the farthest states along in this race, but Arizona is definitely the farthest of all of them.
I was reading a little bit about the Oklahoma one, and one of the senators, just like during the development of the vote and everything, one of the senators was originally going to vote no, but then she switched to vote yes because she was talking to all her constituents and they were very, pro-Bitcoin and wanted it to pass. Obviously it didn't change the outcome, but yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. And maybe like with this sort of like pro-Bitcoin sentiment, maybe Arizona will be the first. Could be good, but I think there's something like 130 pro-Bitcoin bills now across the U.S., which is just so insane. It's a big number.
That's a crazy amount.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it shows like, your one vote really can actually make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like it might not be maybe on like the federal level, but certainly at a, like a local level, right? If you're
Yes.
contacting your local senator or your local, representative,
Yep.
that can make a difference.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because the
yeah,
Oklahoma one was very close. I think it was like one vote off or something. So it matters.
yeah, contact your senators, let them know.
PSA.
Well, this is, I think, the one that's captured the most of my attention this week is
Yes.
all this controversy around op return. And it seems like on one case, like it's something that's been sort of debated in the community for a while, but let's sort of just recap what has been going on. So currently transactions on Bitcoin with an op return right now is kind of capped to 80 bytes of information. If transactions are submitted to the network that are over 80 bytes, they're just not relayed by Bitcoin nodes. But you can submit transactions directly to miners. And if miners include those transactions in their mined block, then they will get included in nodes and they'll just get included in the network. So we've seen, Marathon has had introduced a product called like Slipstream. I think there's another one like Luxor, I think that does some of this stuff as well. There's a couple miners that do this where you can submit sort of outside of the Bitcoin network and still get your transactions through. So there's ways around this. Recently, core developer Peter Todd proposed removing this limit entirely since it's sort of so easy to bypass anyway. And there's a lot of arguments for this and there's a lot of arguments against this. So arguments for this is pretty much that the limit is already easily bypassed by working directly with the miners. There's protocols like Bitcoin Stamps and Counterparty that in order to sort of get around this 80 byte limit, they split up transactions across a ton of different UTXOs and sort of have them kind of linked together in like a multi-sig kind of way. So because of that sort of workaround of things like Bitcoin Stamps and Counterparty, they're like kind of bloating the chain with all these UTXOs that are unspendable, which is like not great for the network. So by removing this limit, you could potentially not have to split these transactions up and, UTXOs would be a little happier. Arguments against this are that, it could increase Bitcoin node system requirements. We've seen this argument a lot on the ordinal side. And like, I have like a Raspberry Pi that's like running a Bitcoin node. It's still running just fine. So it doesn't seem like, all these ordinals, right? There's hundreds of thousands of ordinals now. And that was the argument, right? That they were going to clog everything and there wasn't going to be any space, on these nodes to be able to store all this data. But it seems like it's been just fine. Another argument against is just that it's, signals that Bitcoin supports non-monetary use cases. But there's a lot of precedents for storing data in op return. The first ever Bitcoin block by Satoshi had the chancellor on the brink of bailouts, headline in it. That's certainly non-monetary data. People like Luke Dash Jr., who have been really, really against this, removing this limit, have previously put like Bible verses and religious verses into the op return fields of like the mining pool that he was operating. So he has done this arbitrary data in op return as well. And op return has a lot of very legitimate use cases as well, right? It's very useful for things like Bitcoin L2s, storing their hashes, and even like Lightning and stuff like that. They rely on op return to be able to put this data in there in order to reference later. So there's a lot of also good uses of op return. So yeah, I'm curious what you think about this controversy and how, it might unfold.
So I've been trying to look at it from both angles. I mean, I think like my strongest opinion is that like if it's already happening and it's going to keep happening, you might as well optimize it and make it in a way that like works best for the network and keeps it as decentralized as possible. And I know you have a point on decentralization that you can get into a little bit later. On the other side, like I haven't seen super strong arguments except for me no likey. Like I just, I think Bitcoin should be used as money and money only, and anything else kind of like taints it. So I don't know. I think I really need to go deeper. Like I'm not sure if there's a lot of technical issues that this would cause. It doesn't seem like it would. It kind of just seems like it would alleviate some of the burden. But that's kind of where I'm based at the moment. At the end of the day, it's not free to like post your transactions on Bitcoin. So, if people are including data in the op return, like it's not free. So there is a personal cost to doing so, and so if you're doing that, there's probably a reason that you want to do that. Tell me your opinion.
Yeah, I think decentralization is sort of at the core of it for me. Like when you are going, directly to miners to submit transactions, you're not going through Bitcoin. You're not using Bitcoin consensus. You know, it gets a little tricky when it comes to actual decentralization and, you know, using the network as it was sort of intended to be used. So I don't like that fact, right? By removing this,
Yeah, exactly.
you are just interacting more directly with the Bitcoin network, and miners can choose or not choose to pick up your transactions based on the fees that you're providing when you're doing these transactions. So I think it just gets back to transactions being decentralized as much as possible. And yeah, it's like Bitcoin's permissionless. It's a free market. People are going to do this stuff anyway. We saw like when ordinals came out, you know, you were seeing a lot of similar opinions about this, right? On what are we going to do? How are we going to prune these from our nodes? We don't want them on our nodes. And sort of as a direct response to that, Mike and Space created Bitcoin stamps, which was like, okay, well, if you're going to prune, you know, these ordinals, I'm going to put data on the network in a way that can't be pruned. So I think it doesn't matter what limits you set at this point. People are going to find ways around them. So like, the ship is kind of already sailed. The cat's out of the bag. People are doing these things whether you want them to or not. So we might as well make it as decentralized as possible by having it so that people are submitting these things directly to Bitcoin. And then the miners can choose to include them or not include them in their transactions. And that's it. I feel like it's just, you know, opening it back up to miner discretion and not working with them directly. You're just using the Bitcoin network as it's worked for, you know, the entirety of its kind of life cycle, and you're not going around the network and sort of colluding directly with miners. So
do you know,
I'm in support of it.
Yeah. Do you know what kind of system requirement upgrades the nodes would need to adopt if this passes? Like, is it significant?
I think I don't think it's significant. I think it's theoretical. It's kind of like with ordinals, right? People were just really afraid that suddenly there was going to be a ton of additional storage requirements as a result of this. You might see, you know, if the mempool were to get huge, for example, right? All of these pending transactions could be sitting in the mempool. So there could be additional sort of memory or RAM requirements for nodes. But I don't know. It's like it was the same kind of fear with ordinals with all this stuff. And it doesn't seem like it's really had that much negative effect on infrastructure. Like, I don't think the system requirements have really changed in the past couple of years since ordinals. So I don't know. I don't know if it's that big of a deal. I definitely understand, though, if you're thinking about very long term, right? If you're thinking 100 years from now, maybe, you know, that could be a different story. But it's so hard to predict what things are going to look like 100 years from now.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, it's hard to predict. But I think that's also just like devil's advocate towards like the people that are like really against this.
Yeah.
Is that fact, right? It's like maybe it won't be as big of a deal like today, but in the future it might. And I was seeing some opinions of like, this is sort of like a kind of like a boiling frog kind of thing where, you know, you're just slowly, you know, over time,
little things,
relaxing, these rules and making it easier and easier to do these things until it eventually just becomes too much for, you know, infrastructure to support.
Yeah.
So I understand that.
Totally.
But I think we'll have enough time to, you know, to fix that stuff if it does start to become a problem in the future. So I don't know. Let them.
If anything, you see some of the savagery of some of the core devs on Bitcoin. You sent me the Charlie Spears thread. It's a really great read to kind of keep up with the drama that's happening and a lot of the opinions and the different takes. That was quite entertaining to read.
Yeah, shout out to Charlie. A really great thread that he's been collecting of all of the, all the core dev opinions. Yeah, that is one thing with this is like voicing your feedback about this on like Twitter versus voicing your feedback on like an official like developer core dev GitHub or something. Those are two very different things. We've seen a lot of controversy on people getting like banned or like quote unquote censored on the GitHub for voicing their opinions there. But it's a kind of a different venue. It's not really like the type of place where you go and do that. So we've been seeing also a lot of people complaining about their opinions on like the GitHub getting censored, but it's just not really the right place for that type of conversation. Better to do that on Twitter. So yeah, if you're for or against it, don't go to GitHub and say it there, because you'll probably get banned anyway, and they don't really care about your opinion there. Because they're just trying to get work done. They're trying to get important work done, and that's fine. But yeah, you can voice your opinion on Twitter, and maybe Charlie will add it to his epic mega thread of opinions that have been, really good so far.
We have some exciting Stacks news to get into.
We do. A lot of news this week. So first one is sBTC withdrawals are live. So, in order to have Bitcoin be productive, you need to be able to bring Bitcoin into and out of the system. The peg-ins are still capped right now, but you can currently peg out if you'd like. We have seen, though, that even though withdrawals are live, they've been live for a few days. Most people are not pegging out. They are just keeping their sBTC in. There's only about 15 BTC or so out of the 3,000 BTC in the system that have actually been pegged out. So it's something like 0.02% or something like that. A really small amount of BTC has left the system. So there's a lot of incentives to keep holding on to BTC, to make it more productive. There's certainly a lot of things on the Stacks network that you can do with your Bitcoin. Yeah, people are sticking around.
I'm not
They also
surprised.
said that the cap raise is going to be announced within the next week, I believe. So we have some stuff to look forward to there too.
Lots of exciting news. Yeah, I'm not surprised that not that many BTC has left the ecosystem. Like once you're in, you're playing around with yields and different protocols. You learn to trust the ecosystem and get some good returns. So. But it's definitely very exciting about withdrawals. It's much easier to onboard people when you can tell them you can go both ways, in and out of the system. It's obviously a selling feature.
Yeah, certainly for institutions that want to deploy really large amounts of Bitcoin into these things. Yeah, the fact that you can actually take it out is obviously very important. So you're not stuck in the system. So yeah, it's good stuff. I was seeing the majority of the withdrawals that I was seeing, at least for people posting about it, was just people wanting to test it out and not necessarily doing it because, they didn't like the experience or whatever. They just want to test it. They want to test the liquidity, right? That was the Tesla reason when they sold Bitcoin back in the day. But seems like it's been working okay so far. I haven't seen any people complaining about the experience at all. So I think that also the app to bridge in and out got updated as well. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty nice little interface for that. So yeah. We also saw, going back to the different conferences that Manib was at this week, SUI is going to be integrating sBTC. Really big news. They have a huge community at SUI. So yeah, their co-founder, Adani, I'm so sorry that I can't pronounce your name, the co-founder at Miston Labs, the original contributor to SUI. So sBTC activates Bitcoin liquidity in a decentralized way, unlocking Bitcoin DeFi across any ecosystem, while benefiting from Stacks signers security. So pretty cool, to be hearing that directly from one of the co-founders. And again, SUI is just they have such a big following, and a lot of people are using their network. So the SUI Foundation will also operate a validator on the Stacks network. So that came as part of the announcement as well. Integration is going to be going live in a few months. If you're less familiar with SUI, so they are a layer 1 blockchain. They're a platform that's just really designed for high speed, scalability, low-cost transactions, really optimized for Web3 apps like DeFi, gaming, and NFTs. They have a really big kind of gaming thing there in their community. Developed by Miston Labs, and it was founded by former Meta engineers who worked on the Diem/Libra project. And SUI aims to bridge Web2 accessibility with Web3 functionality. They also use Move, which is a Rust-based language that was originally developed for Diem, and it was designed to be secure and have efficient smart contract execution. So we're getting all the fast, high-speed, scalability, low-cost transactions with Bitcoin security with sBTC. So pretty cool to see that integration be coming in a few months.
Seems like a huge validation for Stacks, and you're right. The SUI community is they seem like they have a very similar mentality to Stacks, of those who just want to build and create, and I don't know, they seem kind of product obsessed, user experience driven, and so I think there's a lot of crossover between them and Stacks, and
totally.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see what can come from that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, finally, there was this really good report that came out from Cambridge University on Bitcoin mining. There was a really good thread from Daniel Batten as well talking about it. But Basically, the report found out that for the first time, the report shows that a majority, 52% or so, of the Bitcoin network is now powered by zero emission energy sources. And that's up from 37% in their last report. So a majority of Bitcoin mining is green and powered by zero emission energy. Report found that 26% of all mining actually happens off grid, which is actually not something that any of their previous reports looked into, which is super interesting. We've seen, from like Bitcoin miners, they're trying to mine directly at the source, which reduces costs. When you're transferring energy from one location to another, that can be very expensive. So if you have your Bitcoin miners directly on site where the energy is being produced, it's a lot cheaper. There's 26% of all mining is happening off grid, kind of directly at the source, which is super, super interesting. The report also commented a little bit more broadly on Bitcoin, for example, showing evidence that the amount of Bitcoin used for illicit purposes peaked in percentage terms in 2019, in absolute volume terms in 2022, and is now trending downwards across both metrics. So Bitcoin is not only being used by criminals, it's clean and it's green, and it's used by real legitimate people that are just trying to make their Bitcoin more productive, I guess.
Well, that's what happens when incentives align, right? When when the cheapest option and the greenest option, like that's what's going to happen. And so, I think there's probably a lot of areas where Bitcoin can incentivize like bettering humanity. So this is like a very cool use case. I just hope that this gets spread across the world more and people can understand this, because there's still such a sentiment that Bitcoin is such a waste of energy, and it's just not true. But there were some comments underneath. There was a post about this report that I thought was kind of interesting. It's more of on like the individual personal level. People just saying like, as a Bitcoiner, tend to consume less in general, and it just kind of goes to this like whole idea of like we have like a consumption driven society, and Bitcoin is like a move away from that and more to like a deflationary system that values more sustainability, and so it's just kind of again going back to like aligning incentives.
That's a really good point. I think for Bitcoiners, for maybe the more extreme Bitcoiners, like all of their sort of decision making when it comes to making purchases is like, should I purchase this or should I purchase more Bitcoin? So it makes total sense that you would be kind of scaling back maybe some of your more frivolous purchases. So that's pretty cool.
Should I buy this Lamborghini or not? I'm just kidding.
Should I keep all 4 of these dining chairs or should I sell a few?
Yes.
Sell the chairs. Well, I think that wraps up all the news. Yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on how this debate with op return goes, how the voting goes with Arizona, and we'll have probably a lot more to talk about next week.
I'm sure we will.
But thanks everybody for tuning in. Have a happy Friday, happy weekend, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend.
Bye. Thank you for listening. We record Good for Bitcoin live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on X. Please follow us at Trust Machines Co. if you would like to listen and engage with us live. Visit us at trustmachines.co for all the latest Bitcoin news. We'll see you next week.